cruising around. I'm on my way to go get some fuel for the Silverado because I am almost out because now my fuel gauge works. But chasing down some front end noise that I'm getting from the kit because I think the kit's too low. Now, for the most part, it's probably my tires that are causing the issue, but when you go over bumps, like a substantial bump, it actually does kind of bottom out. When you're making turns and the suspension articulates a little bit, you get a really bad rubbing from, I think, the tires hitting the fender. But anyway, so that's something I'm going to get some footage of, and we're going to do a little bit of repair. I got those 1-inch spacers with the kit that I have, so we're going to put those on today and see if it makes a difference. Like I said, when I dropped the truck originally, I felt like the front was a little bit too low anyway. So we're just gonna change some things out and see how that works out for us. So get some fuel and then we'll go and drive around for a little bit. All right, we got fuel. That hurt the pocketbook. So let's see if we can make this thing make some noise. It probably will, leaving the gas station. Didn't get it there, but I got another direction to turn. Kinda hear that rattle. Some spots in my neighborhood that'll get it to bottom out and whatnot, and so we'll go bounce around through there, see if we can annoy the neighbors. Just for normal driving though, this thing really doesn't have any issues. It's just, like I said, once you kind of get into some articulating turns and some like kind of speed bump level bumps, it'll bottom out. But for the most part, it rides good. And man, on top of that, it hasn't been aligned or anything, so that may play a lot of it. But anyway, I kind of feel like I don't want to buy a brand new set of tires for these wheels just to get clearance when I've got the spacers. So we'll see what happens and go from there. We're fixing to start making our bouncy runs. There's the turn. Yeah, there's a hit. Basically, when it hits the fender, you can feel the truck just slow down real hard, like you've hit the brakes. So it's kind of one of those things that there it went again. It's kind of just one of those deals you want to get this thing situated, because that's kind of dangerous in some cases. So definitely feel like the spacers are going to go on and whatnot. We'll get some measurements of where we're sitting right now currently, and then we'll put some spacers on and see where we're at, and then go take it for a drive and see what we think on it. Fixing to pull in the driveway, so we'll see what this does. I'm sure it'll make all kinds of racket. Not too bad, but definitely going to have to get it straightened out and everything. So anyway, we'll get this thing in the garage and get started on it. Now that you've seen and heard what's been going on with the truck, here's what we're going to use to fix it. I have these spacers. I think they consider these a 1-inch spacer. This is what actually came with my lowering kit. originally. I didn't put them in because I didn't think I was going to need them. But here's where we go. So we're tucking, but when you turn and articulate the suspension, it kind of rubs and everything, and then when you hit a bump, it bottoms out and everything. So I've made a mark right here, and I've measured from this point here to this point here. It's about 14 inches on the driver's side and 14 and a half on the passenger side. So that's kind of what we have going on the height. That way it gives me a point of reference for the measurement. Going forward, we're going to end up putting these wheels on. This is a 17 by 8. We're going to put a 255/50/17 tire on it to give us the clearance, and they're going to match those big boys for the back. So anyway, let's get this thing started, and we'll catch you here in a second. See where I've been bottoming out and rubbing on this side. It's not really as pronounced on the other side, but anyway, that's all there. My camera quit for some reason, but we're all back together with the exception of the end links, because I think I'm going to have to get a little bit longer, but the shock is back in, spring is back in, and you can kind of see that spacer right there at the end of the spring wind. So this side is all buttoned up and everything. Since I am going to be looking for stuff, I'm probably going to replace that. I know I said that on the last video, but that's bugging me to death, so it's probably going to get replaced. So anyway, we're going to call it a night, and we're going to try again tomorrow. All right, so this is the passenger side on the truck, and I'm going to go into some pretty decent detail on how to disassemble a whole lot of this stuff and get it to a point where we can get everything out of the way and get this spring out and get the new spacer in. So let's go ahead, give you a rundown of what we're going to do. We're going to disconnect your, it's actually your ABS sensor right there. Somehow it's a little bit different on the other side. It pops off. and looks like that it's just, this one's just kind of roughly hanging on there, but and that'll kind of free that up, get that out of the way. 10 millimeter, this is for your brake hose, and that'll help get everything pulled off right there so you don't have a ton of tension on everything when it all gets torn apart. And so that stuff, kind of roll it out right there, and she's nice, loose, and free. And let's see, we'll probably start with the tie rod end right there, which I believe that's a 18 millimeter. Give that a couple whacks with a hammer. And this junky thing is down out of the way. We'll be replacing that too. Following that is the upper ball joint, 18 millimeter as well. That rattled loose a little bit. Pull everything kind of up out of the way, because yes, once again, we're going to be swinging the hammer. Broker free. So I'm going to position the camera so we can get the shock off and go from there. So up here, this bolt right here will, the retaining nuts or whatever, will vary by shock manufacturer. This one just happens to be like a 16 or 5/8, depending on how you want to look at it. So those will come off. And mind you that these are going to be under some tension. So when you're loosening these things off, the suspension is going to be, that spring is going to be pushing against it. So I do kind of get to a point and then it kind of starts spinning on you a little bit. And then underneath, I don't know how well this is going to look, I can't see, but there's two bolts right here, 13 millimeters, and that's what releases the bottom of the shock mount. So now if I can figure out what I did with my socket, we'll go from there. Came out extremely easy. All right, now what we want to do is put a jack underneath it and take some weight off of it. So hoping this doesn't fall. Sometimes the shaft and the shock will turn. You kind of have to get a hold of that little lip. They make a socket for those. I don't have it, but there's not a whole lot of tension on this, so
it should start, once you get the pressure off the bushings and everything that are underneath there, it should just roll out pretty easy. So I repositioned my jack underneath the center of the control arm, kind of where the shock was at. And I've got that nut for the ball joint off. Now the factory one inside here, if those things ever start spinning, a 6mm Allen socket will fit right there and give you kind of a backup to take everything apart. So everything's loose. Let's see what happens when we drop the jack. That's it. She is free to come out. And kind of how the other one was, it's stuck a little bit. I'm thinking that these rubber isolators are just shot. So out it goes. Yeah, I mean, wadded up and junky. So we'll get the other one put on, the new spacer, and go from there. So we got it jacked up back in the spot where it needs to go. Now we just have to kind of fish this part in, which is probably going to take 2 hands. So all right, just kind of get your nut started. It's all pretty much back together. So now we just tighten everything up, and there we go, we're spinning. So that Allen wrench that we talked about, get that in place. And cinch her down. And that is pretty much it. The next thing we're going to do is get our brake lines in place and go from there. Like I said, I'm going to have to run to the store and get new end links because those are just shot. So let's see here. Alright, so in the process of hunting down my bolts for right here, I went ahead and put the shock in. So we'll get these 10 boys done, and then get our shock tightened down. under here. And all right. In here, put the capture nut on. Not quite all the way down. I want it. So I'm thinking I may have got the shock mounts a little bit too tight on one side. So I'm running them, I'm gonna try to keep them as equal as possible. And that's about where they were at. So anyway, this is pretty much done with the exception of those end links. And I gotta route my ABS cable back, but that's not a huge deal. So anyway, guys, I hope that helps y'all out some. So I've got the new tie rod ends in place. One of the big concerns I was gonna have was, would I need a longer, taller end link? But this is pretty much in place. Both sides are torqued down. I've got the clearance there. It's going to lift up a little bit more. The other side has a little bit more clearance. I'm just going to kind of run that for the time being and see what it does. And if I run into any noises or anything like that, I'm definitely going to change that all out. But anyway, I'm going to run this setup for a little bit and see how it goes. I may end up having to replace these with like a aftermarket alignment style, but I won't know that until after I get it all aligned. But anyway, I'm going to throw the wheels on it and we'll see what the measurements are. Alright, so here's how we look right off the jack stands. Got a little bit more clearance on there. Raised it up pretty decent amount on both sides. The front and back actually match each other. So here's the numbers that I started out with. Driver's side was 14 inches. Passenger side 14 and a half. After we put those spacers on, we're like 15 and a quarter on the driver's side and like 16 and a quarter on the passenger side. I'm not real sure why that one went up that much, but these numbers are fresh off the jack stand, so hopefully driving this thing around it'll settle out and do a little bit, have some better numbers. But I do kind of like the way the truck looks now. The wheel wells are a little bit more uniform. So anyway, we'll go take it out for a spin later on. It's getting late tonight, so we'll take it for a spin and see what the results are. So we are making the maiden voyage on the new spring spacers and checking out how they ride. So far, just leaving the driveway, full cut on the wheels. I didn't drag or anything like that, so I am pretty happy about that. We'll go tool around the neighborhood a bit and see if I can make some noise. But being that it's lifted up a little bit more, I don't think I'm going to have any other issues with it. So, rougher part of my neighborhood, as in road-wise. But just kind of tooling around, see what I think about it. And like I said, so far I like it. I feel like with adding the spacers, I'm going to have a little bit more spring rate, I guess, since you've compressed the springs a little bit to get it within the same area. So that may be a good thing, because I do like kind of a little bit more of a aggressive feeling front ride. I don't want it to be a log wagon or anything like that, but I do like a spirited suspension. So so far feels good. It's not bouncing around or soggy. Still need to get an alignment on it. So like I said, going forward, I'm not real sure if I'm going to need those different upper control arms, but as for now, we'll go get it aligned and see how it does. And
everything. The steering's really tight. The new tie rod ends seem to help that out a lot. So we'll get out of the neighborhood here and go find us something to do. But pretty much, I feel like this was a win. You know, I don't have to drive the truck like it was a lowered truck. That's kind of the thing I didn't want to have to deal with. Is I understand that yes, it's a lowered truck and everything, and so you got to be careful not to scrape, or you got to go over speed bumps a certain way, etc., etc. And that's not something I wanted to really deal with. This is a truck. I do use it as a truck a lot of times. So you know, so far I'm pretty happy with it. Get out on the highway here and go tool about a bit. I got a Chevy Trailblazer SS in front of me, and I think me and him are going to be going the same direction. Maybe we'll do something stupid. But, you know, handle's really good, nice and smooth, and we'll go from there. And we're getting on the interstate. We're gonna see how she drives and steers and all that stuff. Driving pretty straight. Truck a lot more now. So anyway, kind of back in the neighborhood where I would usually know where all the rubbing and stuff's at, but you know, good. Went out on the interstate, tooled around, played around with a few people out there, you know, just having fun. Just really, actually, it's such a nice day today. It's not hot as it has been past 2 or 3 weeks here. So it's just nice to get out and go and goof off and hammer on the truck and blow the cobwebs out of it. But anyway, so far, nothing's hanging off, nothing's broken. It's not rubbing anywhere or anything like that. So I'm going to chalk it up to a win, and that is pretty much going to wrap this whole thing up. So if you found anything you like in this video interesting, give me a thumbs up, and you know, consider subscribing. It just helps me out and everything else. But anyway, we're going to wrap it up, and we will holler at y'all at another time.